Greetings folks, welcome back to Grand Adventure. I'm your host Mark Guido, and this week we are in the Lowcountry of South Carolina, just outside of the city of Charleston, so come along. The Lowcountry is the name of this geographic and cultural region along South Carolina's coast, including the Sea Islands. It includes significant salt marshes and other coastal waterways, making it an important source of biodiversity in South Carolina. The tourism industry has been a vibrant part of the region's economy since the beginning of the 20th century. The big draw for this area is, of course, the city of Charleston, on the shores of Charleston Harbor, an inlet of the Atlantic Ocean formed by the confluence of the Ashley, Cooper, and Wando rivers. Charleston was founded in 1670 as Charlestown, honoring Britain's King Charles II, and within 10 years became the fifth largest city in North America. However, it remained unincorporated during the colonial years, and Charleston adopted its present spelling with its incorporation as a city in 1783. Charleston remained among the 10 largest cities in the United States through the 1840 census. Charleston is built around the water. It occupies a peninsula, and part of the city, in fact, actually lies below sea level. Before laying siege to Charleston in 1780, the British attacked the settlement 3 times during the Revolutionary War, mistakenly assuming that Charleston had a large base of loyalists who would rally to their cause once given some military support. However, loyalty to the crown had waned following several British legal cases, including the one in 1772 that prohibited slavery in England. St. Michael's Church was built here in the 1760s. Visitors will find inside a cedar pew where George Washington sat in 1791. Charleston's significance in American history is tied to its role as a major slave trading port. Almost 1/2 of all African slaves imported to the United States arrived in Charleston. Devoted to nearby plantation agriculture that depended on enslaved labor, South Carolina became a slave society. It had a majority black population from the colonial period until after the Great Migration of the early 20th century, when many rural blacks moved to northern and midwestern industrial cities to escape Jim Crow laws. At the same time, Indians across what is now the southeastern U.S. took each other as captives and slaves in warfare. From 1680 to 1720, approximately 40,000 native men, women, and children were sold through the Charleston port, principally to settlements in Bermuda and in the Bahamas, but also to other southern colonies. Slave ownership was the primary marker of class, and even the town's freedmen and freed people of color typically kept slaves if they had the wealth to do so. The plantations and the economy based on them made Charleston the wealthiest city in the 13 colonies. The downtown area of Charleston is thus filled with street after street of gorgeous historical colonial architecture. The Civil War had shattered Charleston's prosperity, but the African American population surged as freedmen moved from the countryside to the major city. They purchased dogs, guns, liquor, and better clothes, all previously banned, and ceased yielding the sidewalks to whites. By the late 1870s, industry was bringing the city and its inhabitants back to a renewed vitality. Just south of Charleston, the city of Folly Beach occupies Folly Island on the Atlantic coastline. It has gained prominence as one of the more popular surf spots along the East Coast. Across Charleston Harbor lies another of the Sea Islands, Sullivan's Island. For our visit to the South Carolina Lowcountry, we're staying at Tiny Town RV Campground, located in Cottageville, a 37-mile drive from downtown Charleston. This small, full hookup campground is easily accessible for I-95 through travelers as well. This is a brand new campground that opened for the first time this season. All sites include 30 and 50 amp service, water, and sewer. Our week here cost us $277.50. Colonial Dorchester State Historic Site sits along the Ashley River, near the town of Somerville. In 1675, John and Mary Smith came to Carolina from England. In 1676, the Earl of Shaftesbury granted 1,800 acres of land to John Smith, which included the future Dorchester site. In 1696, a small group of settlers from Dorchester, Massachusetts, acquired over 4,000 acres, including Smith's 1,800 acres. The site's advantageous location helped the town thrive. Nearby roads led to Charleston and to the interior of the colony, and the Ashley River provided a convenient highway for the shipment of goods and produce. Trade with Native Americans, the development of rice and indigo as cash crops, and a growing population helped secure Dorchester's economic peak in the mid-1700s. Dorchester's location made it a strategic military site. Fear of a possible French invasion prompted the construction of a powder magazine and fort from 1757 to 1760. Originally designed to be constructed using brick, the fort's walls were eventually made of tabby, a concrete material made of lime, sand, and oyster shells. The French invasion never came, however, and the town saw little activity until the American Revolution in 1775. Built in the center of Dorchester, St. George's Anglican Church was originally erected and completed in 1719, and this bell tower, which still stands today, was added in 1751. When British troops occupied Dorchester later in the Revolutionary War, they used the large church and burned it before they were chased out of the village in December 1781. The church was eventually repaired, but, like the town around it, was soon abandoned. Seemingly, the town never recovered after the war, though the reasons given by historians for Dorchester's decline are many and varied. They range from the devastation wrought by British and Loyalist soldiers to the malaria that plagued the swampy area. As Dorchester was abandoned, it was succeeded by Somerville, a newer town that developed close by on higher, better drained land. Bricks from buildings in Dorchester were even removed for use in structures in Somerville. This is the Lowcountry Regional Airport in Walterboro, just down the road from our campground. During World War II, however, this was turned into Walterboro Army Airfield, where over 500 of the famed Tuskegee Airmen received advanced combat training. The Tuskegee Airmen were the first African American military aviators in the United States Armed Forces, who fought in World War II. They formed the 332nd Fighter Group and the 477th Bombardment Group of the United States Army Air Forces. The Tuskegee Airmen received praise for their excellent combat record earned while protecting American bombers from enemy fighters, and the group was awarded 3 Distinguished Unit citations. By the end of the war, they were flying the famed North American P-51 Mustang. This was historically plantation country, although because the area was unsuitable for growing tobacco, planters turned instead to cotton, rice, and indigo. McLeod Plantation is a former slave plantation located on James Island, just west of Charleston. British General Sir Henry Clinton used the original house as his headquarters while planning the siege of Charleston during the Revolutionary War. This plantation house, standing on the land today, was constructed in about 1858 in the Georgian style. The McLeod Plantation Historic Site is now operated by the Charleston County Park and Recreation Commission and opened to the public in 2015. Enslaved people who survived the Middle Passage were imported here mostly from West and Central Africa. They were forced to labor on rice, indigo, and cotton plantations such as McLeod. From various ethnic and cultural groups, these men, women, and children developed the Creole Gullah Geechee culture and language, which has many African retentions. The plantation was occupied by Confederate forces during most of the Civil War, and the big house served as a hospital. Following the war, the home was occupied as offices by the Freedmen's Bureau. At one point, newly freed enslaved people camped out on the plantation's lands. McLeod oak is thought to be more than 600 years old. The plantation slave quarters were in marked contrast to the opulence of the main house. The iconic Ravanel Bridge spans Charleston Harbor, connecting downtown Charleston and the city of Mount Pleasant. At 1,546 feet, it's the third longest cable-stayed bridge in the Western Hemisphere. It was dedicated and opened in 2005 to replace two previous bridges, completed 1 year ahead of schedule and under budget. Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum is located in Mount Pleasant. It's home to two museum ships, the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown and the USS Laffey, a destroyer. Patriots Point also serves as an embarkation point for the tour boats to Fort Sumter, where the first shots were fired in the U.S. Civil War. We're boarding this ferry to travel out into the harbor to see Fort Sumter for ourselves. Charleston played a major part in the Civil War. As a pivotal city, both the Union and Confederate armies vied for control of it. The Civil War began here in Charleston Harbor, when Citadel cadets fired upon the USS Star of the West in 1861, and ended mere months after the Union forces took control of Charleston in 1865. Following the election of Abraham Lincoln, the South Carolina General Assembly voted on December 20, 1860, to secede from the Union, the first state to do so. The first battle of the Civil War took place at the U.S. Army's Fort Sumter, situated on an island in Charleston Harbor. On April 12, 1861, shore batteries under the command of General Beauregard opened fire on Fort Sumter. After a 34-hour bombardment, Major Robert Anderson surrendered the fort. Union control of the sea permitted the repeated bombardment of Charleston, causing vast damage to the city. The Union's Navy blockade shut down most commercial traffic. Although efforts to conduct a land assault on Charleston were unsuccessful, the fall of Columbia and advance of General Sherman's army through South Carolina prompted the Confederates to evacuate Charleston on February 17, 1865, burning the public buildings, cotton warehouses, and other sources of supply before their departure. Fort Sumter's origin dates to the War of 1812, when the British invaded Washington by sea. It was still incomplete in 1861 when the Battle of Fort Sumter began the American Civil War, and was severely damaged and left in ruins, never actually completed as conceived. The island in Charleston Harbor upon which Fort Sumter sits is actually artificial. Originally a sandbar, 70,000 tons of granite were transported from New England to build up the island, beginning in 1829. By 1834, a timber foundation that was several feet beneath the water had been laid, but the decision was made to build a stronger brick fort that is 5-sided, 170 to 190 feet long, with walls 5 feet thick, standing 50 feet above the low tide mark. Although never completed, it was designed to house 650 men and 135 guns in 3 tiers of gun emplacements. The exterior was finished, but the interior and armaments were never completed. The attack on Fort Sumter is generally taken as the beginning of the American Civil War, the first shots fired. Citizens of Charleston were celebrating. Many happy civilians watched the bombardment from on shore. No attempt was made to return the Confederate fire for more than 2 hours because the fort's supply of ammunition was not suited for the task. Also, there were no fuses for their explosive shells, which means that they could not explode. Only solid iron balls could be used against the Confederate batteries. The fort was cut off from its supply line and surrendered the next day. The Second Battle of Fort Sumter took place on September 8, 1863, and was a failed attempt by the Union to retake the fort, dogged by a rivalry between Army and Navy commanders. Although the fort was reduced to rubble, it remained in Confederate hands until it was evacuated, as General Sherman marched through South Carolina in February 1865. A widely announced end of the war celebration took place at Fort Sumter on April 14, 1865. The incident is forgotten today because President Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater in Washington that evening. So we truly hope that you've enjoyed visiting the South Carolina Lowcountry with us. If you liked this episode, please be sure to give us a big thumbs up down below. That is extremely important to us. And while you're down below, you'll find the comments section. And we'd love to hear from you after each grand adventure that we air every Wednesday evening. We would be truly honored if you shared the channel with your friends, family, and on social media. But if you are not yet a grand adventurer yourself, this is the time. Go smash that little red subscribe button right down there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And ring that notification bell to be sure that you never miss a grand adventure. Until next week, from right outside of Savannah, Georgia, please remember life is nothing but a grand adventure. And we'll see you then.